Have you ever felt undervalued or disrespected at work? It's a frustrating feeling that many of us know way too well. The reality is that staying in a place where you're not valued can quickly lead to becoming a disengaged and disgruntled employee. But there's good news. You have a choice. Welcome to the Executive Pill Podcast, the podcast that gives you the tools to lead smarter and influence better. I am Alex D. Tremble, CEO of GPS Leadership Solutions, and I've worked with countless executives and top leaders, and I know firsthand that the most successful ones never settle for being undervalued. They find opportunities where they are respected and appreciated. Today, I want to talk to you about how you can take control of your career and recognize your worth and finding environments that truly value you. And stick around because I'll share some powerful stories at the end and some strategies that help you transform your life today. So, again, this is the Executive Pill where we're here to empower ambitious leaders to level up in their careers. And if you're someone who wants to thrive, not just strive, you're in the right place. So let's dive into this. How do you stay empowered and valued in your career? Well, there's three really important pieces. The first is simply recognize your worth. The first is knowing your own value. Understand your skills, your strengths, what you bring to the table. When you know your worth, you won't settle for less. Here's the reality. I want y'all to really write this down. What have you accomplished for yourself and your organization within the last 6 months? How about 12 months? If you don't have anything on that list, which I doubt, then you need to, one, start moving right now so you can get some stuff accomplished. But if you are like the vast majority of people listening to this podcast right now, you have a substantial list of very important things that you've accomplished for your organizations. Things that have not just been feel goods, but have actually moved the needle. And because you have accomplished these things, your organization values you. That's why you're employed there. That's why they're paying you the money. And look, I'm going to tell you a very inconvenient truth. I learned about business a long time ago. By definition, an organization can never actually pay you what you're worth. If you're someone who brings in $200,000 a year, if they pay you $200,000 a year, then they would make no profit. So they have to pay you less than that. If you're someone who brings in $2 million a year, then they can't pay you $2 million because they never have any profit. So that means that if you are contributing to your organization, you are contributing in an outsized way, and you are valued. You should understand what you are actually contributing to the organization and how powerful it is. And once we understand the true nature of our contributions, it does help us understand that, shoot, yeah, I appreciate being here. I enjoy being here. I want to continue contribute while I'm here. And I should also be appreciated. I should also be valued. I should also be considered when decisions are being made as much as possible, right? I tell this to people all the time, especially in leadership roles, because I do feel like in recent years, society has kind of beaten leaders down, and there's this idea that that leaders are punching bags. Leaders are at fault. If something went wrong, it's the leader's fault. If someone didn't communicate correctly, it was the leader's fault. If the employees are not engaged, it's the leader's fault. I'll tell you the way I look at leadership. So my grandfather had a stroke a number of years ago, and it was a really bad stroke. He went from being a fisherman, a hunter, a bowler, someone who was extremely active, to someone who couldn't barely walk on his own, someone who couldn't communicate. And so overnight, he went from being a super active person to being someone that was completely dependent on someone else taking care of him. That someone else was my auntie. And I'll tell you, it was so amazing how much support was given to my grandfather the resources, the kind words, the prayers, all those things were given to him. Um, and as I step back and look at it, it was, I appreciate it because my grandfather and I were really close. But I also recognized that my auntie didn't get all that support. They didn't get all that praise, all that prayer, all those resources. She was the caretaker. He couldn't have survived without her literally quitting her job to take care of him and her mother. Like, and that happened. She did this for 10, 13 years before he ultimately passed. The same thing goes for like my wife. When we worked for years to have a kid, we actually went through the process for 5 years and went through multiple bouts of IVF, and it was a challenge for us. And she had uh, all types of different challenges throughout the pregnancy process. And once our little guy got here, man, it was amazing. He was beautiful. He is beautiful. He's an awesome little dude, and people give shower him with gifts all the time and want to see him and talk to him and call, hey, how's Oka doing? Like, it's wonderful. And my wife went through postpartum depression, and so the first 4 months was really hard. And again, as we noticed the support and the love and the kindness and the resources that were being given, it was all directed towards our little guy. And very few people asked about the caretaker. I say this to say, I do wholeheartedly believe that leaders and executive leaders are the caretaker of the organization. And just as, yes, we absolutely should be focused on the welfare of the employees, of line staff, but you know who we should also be focused on? The caretaker, the person who's leading the initiatives, who's grooming everyone, who's the person who's responsible, who's making the decisions, who has the additional pressure on them. This is something I talk about. This is the reason why I wrote my last book, Unlocking the Executive Advantage, is because all too often we forget that executive leaders are people, right? We forget that senior leaders are people. And just as a quote unquote average normal person has psychological challenge, emotional challenge, budgetary challenges, family issues, and the list goes on, so do these individuals. So I'm so sorry I took it off on a detour, but I want you to recognize that yes, your organization matters. Yes, your team matters. Yes, your team members matter. Yes, your family matters. Yes, 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 and you matter. You have value. And you need to remember this, okay? So the actionable step from this section is just to regularly assess your contributions and achievements. Keep track of your successes and how they impact your organization. Don't just go as a robot through life, through work, doing stuff. You do have to pause. One of the biggest things I work on with my executive coaching clients is to help them pause. Help them pause and reflect on what has happened. So one, they can make the adjustments so they can be more successful in the future. But two, just so they can understand how badass they are. Because so many of them forget this. They forget the significant impact they're making on their community, on their organization, on the world at times, because they're just in this motion of doing, right? So that's the first thing, okay? The second is to set boundaries. Look, don't tolerate disrespect or being undervalued. Setting boundaries isn't about being confrontational, it's about self respect. I am a firm believer that we teach people how to treat us. So if I am engaging with someone and I'm allowing that person to speak to me a particular way and there is no correction, then why should I be upset or mad at that person when they consistently do that? I have shown them that that is okay. I've told them this is an appropriate behavior for me. Okay. I teach a course on navigating difficult conversations. And that's one of the things I tell people is like, sometimes our difficult conversations are only difficult because we've set a precedence that what we need and what we want doesn't matter. And so the other person says, okay, well, yeah, you said you want this and I want this, but it's okay. What I want is really important, right? So let's keep moving forward. We have to be willing to stand our ground, to be courageous, right? To say this, I matter. These things matter to me. how I'm being treated, how I'm being spoken to, how I'm being included or not included in efforts matters. And this is how it's impacting me and the work, right? These things are really important. So for this section, I want you to make sure you're being you have to clearly communicate your expectations and limits to your supervisors and colleagues. Again, I am a nerd. I realize this. I do. That said, I am fairly sure there are very few people out there who can actually read minds. Okay, so uh, there's not too many Professor X's out there. Um, we can't assume, and we should not assume people know what's in our head. We need to tell them. We need to speak it out and let them know this is how this is impacting me. This is how it's making me feel. Honestly, you're making me feel like I don't belong here, like I'm not appreciated. And many times, unfortunately, people just don't know it. They don't know how they're impacting you. They are doing their best to get through the day the best way they know how to, the best way they've been trained and groomed to know how to. And so I do intentionally try to make sure we don't take things personally. We don't ascribe to someone being heinous where we can say, honestly, they're probably just busy. Honestly, they're focused on what they got going on at home. They're trying to do the best they can in the situation they're in. So let me help them out by letting them know, hey, by the way you're treating me right now, the way you said that, the way you've been including me or not including me, the way you've been doing X, Y, and Z, this is how it's impacting me. Let's have a conversation about it. So I'm rolling. Okay, now let's go to the third one, okay? This is about seeking environments that value you. There are plenty of opportunities out there with organizations and teams and leaders who will value. Don't be afraid to explore new opportunities if your current environment doesn't appreciate you. There's this exercise I do in one of my talks on successful leadership. And I'm going to do it with you right now, okay? I want to do a real quick exercise. I want you to think of someone right now in your mind, who you believe is a successful leader. Someone you believe is a successful leader. Now you got that person in mind. I want you to now do this. I want you to identify 3 skills that person has that contributes heavily to them being a successful leader. Just 3. Just 3 skills. Proactive, strategic, risk taker, whatever it may be. Write down your 3 skills. Okay. Now what I want you to do is I want you to write down those 3 skills in the comment box. Okay. Now I'm actually asking you to do this. Please write down those 3 skills in the comment box because I'm going to do something. Okay. Now you've submitted those 3 skills. I want you to look back through the comment box and I'm going to challenge you. I challenge you to tell me that every single other person who just put those 3 skills in the comment box had the same exact 3 skills. Because I promise you they didn't. When people talk about the 7 required skills of a leader or the 11 blank blanks of a leader, that's all BS. Because the reality is that you've just proven if everyone has done this exercise, all these individuals who are deemed to be successful leaders as from other leaders just like yourself have different skills, different abilities, different strengths, right? Now, why is this important? Because first it sets the ground rules that we all understand that every leader is unique. Every individual is unique and every leader is unique. And that means everyone comes to the table with different skills. And you know what? Sometimes the skills you have just aren't valued at the organization you're at. That's it. If one of your skills is that you are a detail-oriented person, that's a great skill to have in the right organization. Sometimes an organization is at a spot where they don't want or need someone who's utilizing those detailed skills. They just want someone at the top, maybe just being charismatic and doing some overarching stuff. That's what they want. That's what they need. And if that's not you, it's okay. But on the other side, there are organizations that say, you know what, oh my God, we have this, something's going off track, something not where it's supposed to be. We need someone who's going to come in, be very intentional, dive into the weeds of what's going on and figure out what this problem is, fix it. That's what we need. And that may be you. My point. You can find an organization that needs your skills. You can find a team that needs your skills. I encourage you to do the homework on the front end, which is understanding, again, what you bring to the table, what your accomplishments are, how it had an impact on your organization, on your team, on your culture, and so on and so forth. What are the monetary? How can you tie numbers to it? Because numbers can translate, right? Oh my goodness. So in this section, again, I'm going to encourage you to network actively and stay open to new possibilities, even if you're not actively hunting. Look, there's a saying, actually. The best employees aren't looking for a job, right? And that has always been my situation throughout my life. Um, I have been promoted 9 times throughout my life. I've had many other opportunities now that I have my own business. And I'll tell you, I never applied for a job. People always came to me asking me, hey, was I interested in a new opportunity? What was I working on right now? Was I happy where I was at that moment? Right? You need to be consistently open to opportunities and building new connections. And this is why I wrote the 2 books. One, Relationships That Work, and my most recent one, Unlocking the Executive Advantage. The first book, Relationships That Work, teaches you how to identify the right relationships strategically so you can go after them, how to build those relationships, whether you are introvert, extrovert, whatever you are. It has a very easy 4-step method. Use a 4C connection model for anyone to understand how to effectively build relationships. That is what that book is focused on, and it's really, really good at it. I've had really great reviews. This most recent book, Unlocking the Executive Advantage, is now that you have these relationships, not all relationships are created equal, right? Some relationships are worth more than others. Now, look, y'all gonna get mad at me right now. I get it, but I'm gonna tell you this right now. My wife and I have been together for 17 years. 17 years. If I did not prioritize spending more time with her than I do with the barista at the local Starbucks, we would not have been together 17 years. There are always prioritization in our relationships. We have to. And the more success you have, the more people who want to be in your life, the more offers, the more opportunities are consistently coming at you. So you can't say yes to everything. So the question then becomes, who do you say yes to? And how do you allocate your time and energy to those individuals? I really do say, talk about in that book, the most recent one, Unlocking the Executive Advantage. It's a workbook. And it's meant to be a workbook because I want you to actually go through the process of looking at the relationships around you and deciding where to spend more or less time. There's really 3 types of people, 3 types of people around you. There are detractors, people who undermine you and your goals, intentionally or unintentionally. There are people who are supporters, and supporters are freaking wonderful. They're great. They're there for you emotionally. They're the ones you can go to the bar with, have a drink, relax, just chill. Supporters are wonderful, right? And they're advocates. See, advocates take a step past what supporters do. Supporters are there for you emotionally. They're, hey, that was messed up, or man, congratulations, like all that good stuff. But what they don't do is help you reach your goals. They're not the ones who put you in connection with someone else, who make a referral, who hires you to do something, or hires your company, or who makes that pivotal introduction. I had a supervisor one time who was an advocate. It was crazy. I appreciate him so much. I made a huge mistake. I was serving as the chief of staff at one of the most political parks in the country. I was serving as chief of staff, and I made a bad move. I disobeyed a direct order, and I was torn up. My boss was not happy. And as I drove home that day, I was crying, I was boo-hooing, I'm calling the phone. Oh my God, I think I'm about to get fired. This is over. And if she doesn't fire me, then am I supposed to resign? Like this is horrible. I got a family, I got a house. And he was like, Alex, calm down, calm down. He said, Alex, look, the reality is that you are where you are because you've taken risk. You are where you are because you have taken risk. You have disobeyed orders before. Even when you work for me, there were things I told you to do that you had a gut feeling about and you didn't do it, or you did it a different way and you were right. And we gave you props for it. But you realize that just as you're willing to accept the credit for being right, you must accept the credit for being wrong. And so when you go back tomorrow, again, don't give excuses. Accept the punishment, whatever it is. Say you did it wrong and get better and don't do it again. Calm down after that. What I didn't know years later, though, I found out talking to the person I've been working with when I messed up. She said, "Hey, you know, George called me that day, right?" I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, George called me. He said you were crying, you were worried that I was about to fire you, and or you need to resign." And he was like, "Hey, look, Alex is a good kid. He's gonna do it right the next time, so on and so forth." And he called me her just to make sure that you were gonna land in a good space. That's an advocate. Someone who I didn't ask him to do that. He didn't have to do that, but he went out of his way to stick his neck out to make sure I was okay. That is an advocate. Supporters don't do that. Again, it's nice to have them around. It's wonderful. They're great. But for so many reasons that I talk about in the book, Unlocking the Executive Advantage, they don't do that. And so if you're ambitious, you need people. You need as many advocates around you as possible, because being successful is hard, period. But it can be so much easier when you have people around you actually helping you. Okay, goodness gracious. I know I'd be preaching. Okay, so we talked about those. And so I guess I want to share with you really one last story, which is why I kind of got the mindset around this. This happened a long time ago, but I remember it was the first big job I was applying for, and I was going to make big money. I was going to be working in New York on the stock exchange and all like that. And I interviewed for the job, and I did the job interview, and and the woman called me back a couple of days later and said, Alex, I want to let you know that you didn't get the job. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, again, I've kind of always been in a situation. I always kind of felt like it's okay. If you don't get a job, you don't get a job. And she said, we had 500 people apply for this job. I was like, wow. Shit, of the 500 people, we interviewed 20 people. Oh, wow. Thank you. Of the 20 people, we hired 2 people. You were number 3. I was like, wow. Thank you so much for calling me. I appreciate this. And she said, what made you number 3 instead of number 1 or 2 is that you made a comment during the interview. We asked you a question and you made a joke, and we just we didn't understand it. Why would you say that during the interview? And honestly, it was at that moment I realized that wasn't the right place for me anyways. I am always going to be joking. I am always going to be laughing. I am always going to be me. And so if I'm ever in a work situation where I'm not feeling valued, where I'm not feeling engaged, where I don't think people understand or appreciate my contributions to the team, and if there isn't even an inkling that I'm about to be, oh my God, I got to go to work again today. Oh my God, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna find the next place. I'm gonna find the next team, because I have a choice just as you have a choice. We don't have to be there just because we are there. Just because that's where we are doesn't mean that's where we have to stay. You have skills, you have value. That's why you're employed today. So I encourage you. Here's your task, okay? Start, stop, continue. I love doing these. So I want you to start thinking more about the contribution you've made to your company and how they could be communicated and applied to other offices and departments and organizations. I also want you to stop. I want you to stop thinking that where you are is where you have to stay until someone else lets you out. You have the power to leave, and you've always had that power. And finally, I want you to continue. I want you to continue being the amazing person you are. Don't allow yourself to become disgruntled. Don't allow yourself to become anything or anyone other than who you are and who you truly want to be. Now remember, you have a choice. You don't have to stay in a place that doesn't value you. The world, oh my God, there's a world of opportunities out there waiting for someone with your unique skills, talents, and experiences. Thank you again so much for tuning into the Executive Appeal. If you enjoy this episode, do me a favor, connect with me on LinkedIn or visit GPS Leadership Solutions at gpsleadership.org. And as always, I encourage you to stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal with Alex Tremble. I invite you to follow The Executive Appeal wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, your host, Alex Tremble, across all socials or via email for exclusive webinars, courses, and in speaking engagements on continued topics of executive leadership. So until next time, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.